my first take, the End of Faze Clan is assigned to stick to streaming collaborations, but not to contractual teams. Yeah, it's I saw a lot of people talking about the Faze Clan leaving. I saw them all posting that they're leaving, and I think having these big teams of streaming, it's getting a little harder. I think everybody has their own goals, their own mindset, and it's sort of going to be like one for all. Because I think like Kai as well, he always had his little crew. I forget. I'm trying to remember what that crew name was. Um, but with not with
Streamer
Neon.
University for a bit,
Well, Streamer
or I don't know what it
University,
was before that.
but the one with like all like with Duke, his little, he had that like house, with all the other streamers in it, and it seems like that was great for a few years, and I think FaZe Clan started it by having that house, the gaming house with all their members, and then other people are started doing it, but I see everybody going away from it. Everybody's doing their own individual thing because it's just a smarter move, um, collaborate, join each other, but not really stick to teams, trying to work together all the time because everybody's unique. Everybody has their own content. And I think it's about time that, these people just stick to streaming and collaborating, but not being in a house, relying on one another and, these teams of people to do things for you.
For sure. Yeah, no, I completely agree. I feel like the team in that, like they'd all rent a house, buy a house, and then
Mhm.
live in a room, and kind of go inside, create content throughout. It's a cool concept, but I feel like it's an old concept at this
Yeah.
point. And I think it's gotten to a point where I think, if I understand correctly regarding the situation, I want to say it was the owner of maybe FanDuel,
Mm.
or a major betting website, if I'm not mistaken. If it's not FanDuel, it's another one. And the owner of that, I guess, bought out FaZe Clan from, I believe it was FaZe Banks who
Hmm.
had ownership of it. And I guess there was some type of contractual percentage that they were supposed to be taking out. Yeah, I guess there was a contract that they were supposed to sign. They didn't sign it. And when they came back around to ask them to sign it, is when everything kind of hit the fan.
Yeah.
And, it's just kind of part of the deal. But honestly, everybody who left the FaZe Clan, I feel like, quite frankly, got the most out of it.
Yeah.
And at this point, each and every single one of them can go drive their own business, have their own, accounts on
Hmm.
Twitch or YouTube, whatever it might be, and just make, a plentiful living the way that they have
Yeah.
been. They've created, good enough following. And that's what was great, I guess, about FaZe Clan itself. It started off, focused on gaming
Hmm.
and really turned into a lot more than just that. But now I feel like if you just have simple collaborations, you team up on a game with somebody, for example, like Sketch or
Hmm.
Queso, sometimes they even play together. Jinxie's
Yeah.
another one. If they team up and play together, play a game one night or, go out on a trip somewhere, I feel like those are pretty cool and it's good content, honestly. But when it's circulated around a household and you're trying this and that and the other, it's kind of a hot mess after a while.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's kind of the point it got to. I feel like it's at a good stopping point. But honestly, throughout all this, I wouldn't doubt if there's maybe a chance that they just start a house of their own and call it something else. I could definitely see that happening too. But at this point, honestly, I feel like it's a good time to stop, even if they are rooming together in some house. That's cool, good for them. But don't make anything contractual, binding. I feel like they
Hmm.
really don't need it. It's not necessary. They could do perfectly fine on their own.
Yeah, I think they all can, and I think you made a great point that, when you get started, something like this could be very helpful to get a following, to get that support. You mentioned Streamer University. It's sort of Streamer University was sort of the take of what a game like a house like this and having the team aspect sort of help all these non smaller streamers sort of get that limelight, collaborate with those like Kaizenat, Jinxie, whoever, everybody that was there that was big name because there were a lot of big names and a lot of small name people. But yeah, I think it's a good idea. You look at a lot of these houses, they were fun to watch for a bit, but then eventually it just, for me at least, and like I said, people are gonna say that it's just you're old, you're too old to really know everything, but it's like it just got a little stale. They still it kept on being the same type of video, and eventually it needed to change up. And I think a lot of these streamers, I give them a lot of props because they're millionaires, and if I was that smart when I was that age and could have done it, we would have been pioneers at our age. Um, but kudos to them, and I think they're all going to be successful because they all have a great following. They all have great content, unique content, and I think they're going to strive wherever they are. And if they decide to make a house, we'll see how long it lasts because I think that's the big thing now, contractual terms. How long you
Mhm.
sign that contract for, what the percentage of your, what the revenue you bring through, views on Twitch, views on YouTube, and then sponsorship. It's like, if you're having to give up 25% because you're under a contract, well, if I could do this on my own, I keep a majority of it. It's a lot better, negotiations because sometimes one person brings more than another. And, you're going to sort of be like, dang, I'm doing 90% of the work, but these other people are getting are getting a lot of profit because of me, and I'm not getting extra, so people are going to resent some people at times for it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It kind of turns into something like like the music industry, for
Hmm.
example. You know, you have these contracts that, you know, for example, like Taylor Swift, she has to
Yeah.
go and like recreate songs or, you know, redo albums in
Hmm.
order to make them her own, or even try to buy out the rights to it. You know,
Yeah.
it's very common for, you know, that to occur.
Hmm.
And it's just, I feel like streaming can be seen the exact same way. It's like all your
Hmm.
content's released, but it's released under the umbrella of so and so company. And, you know, then it's not yours, you know,
Hmm.
and you know, you're giving up 20, 30, 40% sometimes, I'm sure. And you know, you have to really weigh it out and see if it's good. But you know, I guess they did made well out.
Hmm.
I guess the first year or so without signing anything, and
Hmm.
didn't have to give up a percentage of it until they came back and said, "Hey, you aren't paying your
Hmm.
percentage. What's up with that?" And
Yeah.
it's funny how it happens at the end of the year. I don't know if it's an oversight or something, and they just barely realize when, you know,
Yeah.
they're heading into tax season. They're like, uh,
Yeah. Where's our
"Where's
money?
our cut?" Yeah, you know, we have a lot of overhead for that place.
Yeah.
Where's our income? So who knows what it was, but obviously they all left. Um, Kind of made its rounds, kind of different explanations I saw. But yeah, at this point in time, it's like, dude, you guys are better off on your own.
Hmm.
And you brought up a great point too. Man, I wish we would have started this podcast 10 years ago and
Yeah.
kept at it, because I feel like we could have been ahead of the game even. But, you
Mhm.
know, regardless, we're doing it now. And, you know, again, the freedom of going off, doing it on your own, that's a key word, freedom. And I
Mhm.
feel like you'll have a lot more of it without, you know, being under I guess, an overhead contract.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's what FaZe Clan was always about at first, is the freedom to do what they wanted to do, post the content that they wanted to do, and I think for all these streamers, it's like, you know, they're their own boss because they could post whatever they want. If you go under a platform or a company that's sort of funding a lot of your stuff, and you have to give them a percentage, you know, of your income of sponsorship, they're also going to be able to control a little bit of what you do put out, because like I say, you have to remember you're putting out towards their name. So could it be good
Mhm.
for some of these smaller streamers trying to make it big and get that, you know, support? Possibly, but the big thing is read your contracts, get a lawyer, because you want to make sure you're not going to lose any of your content after your contract expires if you decide not to renew with them, based on how it goes, because that's a big thing. You know, if you develop it, become a big household name, you know, and then you leave, you know, FanDuel, and they're like, yeah, you're not, you could go, but all your content, all your, you know, your channel, all that, that's ours. You know, you're gonna have to start from scratch, and it's a tough battle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then I don't know. I don't even know if they can go back on if they didn't sign anything, but just imagine if they try to go back and being like, yeah, this video got a lot of views. Let's
Yeah,
check your earnings from that one, or
yeah,
whatever. But again, they didn't sign anything from what it
yeah,
sounds like, and they're probably fine, you know, just leaving it at that. Yeah, definitely the end of an era with
yeah.
FaZe altogether. Some people I was saying, you know, people are saying FaZe ended 10 years ago, whatever. It
Mhm.
seemed like they really drove away from the gaming content,
Mhm.
and we're just kind of freelancing streams, kind of had more
Yeah,
Kai Cenat type
yeah.
scenarios. But yeah,
The
that was strictly.
vlogging and stuff.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah,
Being in LA, obviously, that's something that's always active. But yeah,
yeah.
didn't really seem like much gaming came out of there, even though that's how it
Hmm.
started.
Yeah, yeah. I think they got away from that. I think they still did a lot of gaming, but it wasn't what they were doing beforehand. I think one
Hmm.
question for you: do you think anybody could recreate what FaZe Clan was at the beginning nowadays?
Um, in a weird way, no. In the reason is because A, it's already been done before, and we
Hmm.
see like what path it took, and you know where it went, and also the state of gaming isn't really optimal at the moment, in my opinion. I feel like this is kind of a lull. I know Battlefield's been great.
Hmm.
Call of Duty is in shambles, and I think that's a big issue. Um, I don't really play Counter-Strike, but I don't hear much from it. I know Rainbow Six Siege is a pretty big deal, but I don't know, you know, the background of that one too much either
Hmm.
at this moment. I feel like a lot of it might be driven towards like role-playing games or games where you're playing solo and then people are just watching you game and it's not really collaborative.
Yeah,
I know that, for example, and this is why I don't think the group thing works anymore. And I think that collaborations are better. I don't know if you've seen his content, but I forget his exact name, but he's the peanut guy, and
uh,
he has his
the
face as a peanut. He's pretty funny.
burnt peanut or something,
Burnt
or
peanut. There you
roasted
go.
peanut. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And he'll collaborate with like Nick Merckx or
Hmm.
Tim the Tatman, and I think it's hilarious. But see, that's more of like that collaborative
Hmm.
type of environment versus like, you know, you're gaming in one room and you have somebody
Yeah,
in the next. And I feel like that works much better. I honestly I think that's where it's at. Could it be recreated? Probably, but I don't think you're gonna find it.
yeah.
I don't think it's gonna last.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'll be hard. I think it's possible depending on what type of multiplayer gaming comes out in the future. You know, Call or not Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto could be one that could bring a house
Yeah.
like that around. But like I say, you have to do it right, you know. And I also think like the solo gaming, even when you're doing like multiplayer, like, you know, anything, but you're just by yourself and just bringing people on. I think that's what some people enjoy, is just watching some people have fun, be normal game players, joking around, conversating with their, you know, the people watching them, you know, and it's just a unique interaction, you know, it makes it seem real life too. So, I
Mhm.
think it'll be hard. I think it's possible. I think the next time we may see it, it will be Grand Theft Auto, unless Call of Duty comes out with something new. And like I said, Fortnite's still a popular one, but I don't think it is what it was beforehand. Um, but yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I guess it would just, take a strong game to kind of get everybody back together.
Yeah,
I guess one house I would tune into, just final statement for me, Queso, Sketch, I don't know, throw Jinxie in there, get a couple others. They're good content.
yeah,
They're funny, in my
yeah,
opinion. Don't think they'll do it, but that would be funny. Even if they just
yeah,
did a vacation rental,
yeah.
I'd be down. Be funny.
Just like a 24 or 48 hour stream, that they do in a house,
Yeah,
rent an Airbnb that allows it, something like that, you know.
perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Hell yeah.
Well, yeah. Yeah. So we'll see what happens with these Phase Clan members. Like I say, I think a lot of them will end up okay. A lot of them, like I say, hopefully they were making financially smart decisions to just be financially well off with what I've heard earnings are. But like I said, we'll see if they come up with like Phase Clan 2.0, call it something else, Blaze Clan,
There you
you know,
go. Just blaze it up all day.
just blaze it up all day. All right.